So here's a fellow, this is Vilfredo Pareto, and that's all the Italian I speak, by the way. I need more wine to speak more Italian. So you've all heard of the 80-20 rule. This is the guy that basically came up with the 80-20 rule. So what Mr. Pareto discovered as he was analyzing land ownership in Italy was that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. Okay? But then as he researched it further, he discovered so many things in life are kind of that 80-20 mix, right? So in a sales force, you'll have 20% of your salespeople doing 80% of the sales, right? In a cattle herd, you'll have 20% of your herd producing 80% of the quality cattle, right? Even the carpet in your house, 80% of your carpet is not walked on, it's just the 20%, right? When you think of where your furniture sits and all the rest of it. And you can, when you look at it, yeah, it kind of makes sense, right? So 80-20 is a very interesting concept that kind of makes sense in life. But what I want to, one of the messages I want to give is that there's a 80% or a 20% of the 20%, okay? So what we do at Rocky View County, oh, and I was remiss in actually recognizing my colleague and friend, Rolly Ashdown. And I would say in this regard, Rolly is your elected official here, former Reeve. I asked if he wanted me to call him his worship, but we'll just reserve that for Van Enchi. And, but there is a cream of the crop kind of percentage in everything in life, okay? So I would say even in community leadership, okay, this is my plug for Rolly. There's 20% of the 20%, which is 5% of the population doing 65% of the productive things. So in a lot of aspects in life, you think of, you know, talented musicians, they're probably the top 5% of all people who sing are doing the most impressive 65% of the music, okay? Or in business, that 20% of the 20% is doing 65% of the wealth generation and the development and the investment. So that's kind of one of my theses that I follow, and it's a little bit biased. So let's move to the next slide. So here is the landscape of the ski hill at Nakiska. Oh no, that's probably the falling price of oil. So that's the falling price of oil that we saw and experienced within the last 2-3 years. We came off a high of 120. This is West Texas intermediate prices, and we hit a low of about $27, $24, $27. So this dramatically changed the economic prospects in Alberta, particularly for provincial budgets and so on. And we'll flick to the next slide, please. This is what low oil prices feel like. Okay, kind of freaked out a lot of people, right? Including some investors that said, if that looks like anybody that you recognize, keep that a secret. But that scared a lot of people in Alberta. Low price oil, and we're all experiencing that. Next slide. So here is the falling Canadian dollar. Okay, there's a reason why they call the Canadian dollar the petrodollar, because the petrodollar moves in sync with the price of oil, as you can see here. Again, this dramatic, down, down, down kind of movement. That chart depresses some people because they think, the Canadian dollar should be worth more. It's kind of like a Canadian pride thing. But there's a silver lining to having a low Canadian dollar, which I will get into in a few minutes. So next slide. So the emotions that go along with the market up and down, and we are just in the bottom of this cycle. Cycles are normal. Just like spring follows winter, we will move out of this economic situation. And you can see the emotions that go along with that, right? Like the optimism and the exhilaration, the thrill, the euphoria, right? That's when we had oil in that kind of $120 range. I saw former Premier Ed Stelmach, his grandchildren dance in the same dance group that my kids dance in. So we were at a little Ukrainian dancing thing, and Ed and I were talking. And he said, when oil was $120, he was the premier at that time. And he said, you got a whole different set of issues in the province. Everybody's making money, 6 figures, especially up in these producing areas like Fort McMurray. And they're spending like crazy. But there's social problems that come out of that, right? And now we're in this low cycle, right? And the emotions that go along with that, the panic and the the capitulation and the depression, it's normal, right? But we're coming out of that. I think we're coming out of that. Here's where the economist comes in. I predicted in February when I did my report to council, we'd have $50 oil by summer, okay? Sure enough, it worked out, that's great. I personally think we're gonna be in the $100 range by the end of the year. With the geopolitical things going on in the world, the US just put a major aircraft carrier into the Mediterranean. They're positioning themselves for conflict with Russia, blah, 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 right? So, not that I'm wishing for economic turmoil or political turmoil in the world, but that's how things work, okay? The other thing that I've noticed with long-range cycles is we've just crossed the 400-day moving average for oil, and that is a level of support, not resistance. So when you do technical analysis of commodities, oil being one, sometimes they'll hit that moving day average, and that provides a resistance. You just bounce off the bottom, lower lows and higher lows, right? So we are actually moving into a very bullish trend in crude oil right now. So I think this is the point where things start to take off. So let's move to the next slide. This is what low oil prices feel like and how investors feel, and then the resistance to invest in Alberta for a whole host of reasons. Let's move to the next slide. These are pictures I didn't put in the council presentation. So let's talk a little bit. It's the entertainment. The wine helps, so just the jokes get funnier if you have more wine.
Maybe that's what you need to do at council. Start feeding them wine.
So we'll leave that with Rolly to present. There's got to be a budget for that. So let's talk a little bit about black swan events and unplanned events. Black swan is something that nobody can predict. 9/11 was considered a black swan, right? I would argue that there are probably things that happen a little more infrequently, like a tsunami in Japan, right? Which had a dramatic impact on the people of Fukushima, right? And it wasn't the Fukushima wasn't a result of the earthquake, it was the tsunami that impacted the nuclear power plant, and that had a huge impact on the uranium price. But uranium is an energy commodity. So when energy got impacted through uranium, it also affected natural gas and oil. So the thesis would have said, well, geez, the Japanese are going to be spending like $40 million a day on natural gas to make up for the baseload power on uranium, which in turn should affect the price of oil. But as things go, it didn't turn out that way. So here we are in this year, we had those crazy fires in Fort McMurray. Nobody could have predicted that. And a resilient economy, our ability to recover our economy, I think in Alberta is strong because of the people and the position and the attitude that we have. So we'll get through this, and I think people in Fort McMurray will always appreciate our support. Just like Slave Lake, just like Bragg Creek and High River in 2013. It's not like this is going to be the last calamity we have, but we want to be prepared for it, right? And I've got a whole thesis as to how people can prepare and strengthen their own economic situation. So let's go to the next slide. So this is kind of what I do in economic development. I'm constantly fishing for prospects and suspects, for new investments for the county. And we've had huge success, in part because we've had elected officials like Al Schul, who was our REIT, everyone knows Al. We've had elected officials like Rolly Ashdown, who have the foresight and the vision to make investments in things like infrastructure that make my job a whole lot easier, right? But it's not just the county, it's the landowners, the developers, and the brokers that help me do my job. But this is, I'm sure Alberta Wildlife would be freaking right now if they saw that hook in the water, but that's kind of my approach. And I got as many lines in the water as I can. So let's go next slide. So getting back to my 80-20 rule, Rocky View enjoys once-in-a-lifetime successes like every year or two. It's unbelievable. I came from BC to here, so I tell my friends from Newfoundland, I'm originally from out east. Oh, and they say, hey, boy, where are you from? Are you from Cape Breton or something? So that was the worst Newfoundland accent ever. It sounded like a leprechaun. But I say, no. So I come from out east, I come from Manitoba. Oh, that's not east. That's the Middle East. So Manitoba is the Middle East, and Newfoundland is the real East, right? So we have these once-in-a-lifetime successes in Rocky View, like, and I'll get into them if we go to the next slide. Well, I'll get to that. I got a slide in between. So this is like finding diamonds like this, okay? I've talked a little bit about commodities. Diamonds, of course, aren't, you can live without diamonds. Sorry, girls, I hate to say that, but this is a diamond that was discovered recently. I think it was just in this last year. 813 carats. There was one that was found that was even larger, so this is actually the third largest diamond now. They've changed the techniques apparently for mining diamonds because they don't just go in and bang around and break them up. But this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime diamond discovery. So let's go to the next slide. Rockview is hitting once-in-a-lifetime successes almost every year. And it's not a surprise that that's happening. So a few of the examples that we've got, everybody knows Crossarm Mills. Has anyone not been to Crossarm Mills? That's an investment. Okay, we're going to do a road trip. We're going to go up to Crossarm Mills up in Balzac. And Crossarm Mills is a regional shopping center. It's about 1.3 million square feet. For those of you who like to walk, there's lots of people, moms that like to take the strollers and seniors who like to walk. It's 1.5 miles inside the mall. But the Crossarm Mills development is actually done by a company called Ivanhoe Cambridge, which is the real estate division of the Quebec Pension Plan. So this makes Albertans really happy. All this money from Quebec, through the investment arm of the pension plan, is coming back and investing in places like Crossarm Mills, right? Crossarm Mills opened at the bottom of the recession. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're just getting our own money back.
Yeah, that's right, we're getting our own money back. Yeah, that's a whole other story. But we're at the pit of the recession in 2008. Crossarm Mills created 3,000 full-time equivalent jobs. Awesome, right? And we're doing it consistently every year. You look at CN Rail. Well, I'll save CN Rail because it's such an awesome story. Walmart Food Distribution Center, that opened, they did 500,000 square feet and then doubled the size of their warehouse. So all the Walmart food stores, supercenters, in Western Canada get their stuff from Rockview. They don't get it from Calgary, they get it from Balzac and Rockview County. And that tax base helps to support all the developments in Langdon and Springbank and Bearspaw and Bragg Creek and so on, right? Smuckers, well, Hillwood, let's talk about Hillwood. So Hillwood is a US company. Many were in the throes of the US election, which is tremendously entertaining. But remember Ross Perot, the guy who ran as a libertarian? This is the Ross Perot family, okay? And Ross Perot Jr. is the fellow that's running the company now. So they've partnered with Adrian Monroe and Balzac, and we've got one of the most successful, the most aggressive, one of the most robust developers in the United States. With one of their first investments outside of the US is in Balzac. That doesn't just happen by accident. So Hillwood, through their leadership, attracted Smuckers. So Smuckers, you know, the jams that they do, and they do a whole range of food products. Their distribution center is in Balzac, okay, in the Hillwood property. Then there was a company, what was it called now? It's Target. We call it Target in Canada. And they came and went. And I shouldn't joke about Target, because I've got things in my fridge that lasted longer than Target did in Canada. But Target came to Canada, okay, they built their distribution center in Rockview, and 1.3 million square feet. Huge. That's 22 football fields under one roof. Massive. I drove through the site with Graham construction guys. We couldn't call it the Target warehouse because it was super top secret because they had corporate reasons to keep it top secret. So we went out there and we drove around in a truck, and we drove and drove and drove, and we were inside. 22 football fields big. So when Target decided to leave, we thought, oh goodness, this is going to be terrible. What are we going to do with a 1.3 million square foot building? Sobeys came along and bought it. Sobeys is now investing their own money to bring that up to their level, and Sobeys bought out Safeway. Okay? So now we've got Sobeys doing all their distribution for all the stores in Western Canada from Balzac. Not from Calgary, not from Toronto, not from Edmonton, but from Balzac. So that's huge. Century Casinos, everyone knows, you're all appreciate horse racing. They've got standardbred now, they'll have thoroughbred probably in June, and they're doing an amazing job. So now we've got the retail and entertainment in the Balzac area, right? GFS, that's Gordon Food Service, they do all the restaurant distribution. You see GFS trucks everywhere. All the restaurants, food service, hospitals, schools, institutions that get their food from GFS get it from Rocky. Awesome. And then last one I wanted to mention, well, the second last one, CN Rail. You're all familiar with Conrich, that's just in between Chestermere and Calgary. And CN Rail contacted me and said they want to do a inland port. But inland port's kind of confusing, so they call it Calgary Logistics Center. $260 million they've invested in Conrich. Huge. Single largest investment in CN's history. And this is a company since 1908. Fantastic. Of course, the icing on the cake is CN Rail is headquartered in Montreal. So we've got more money coming from Quebec and investing heavily in Alberta, not in Calgary, not in Edmonton, but in Rockies. And of course, they were successful in attracting Princess Auto. That's a Winnipeg-based company. 265,000 square feet. So all the Princess Auto stores, probably west of Saskatchewan, get their stuff from Rocky. So pretty impressive. These are once-in-a-lifetime investments that are happening time after time after time, which is pretty good. Kind of makes my job easy, actually. That's why I say I've got the best job at the county, but don't tell anybody that because it's supposed to be a secret. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So Rocky View works very well with our neighbors, and we do work very well with the city of Calgary. I picked this picture because I thought maybe one of those guys looked like Rolly, but you notice how he's drying his hands there. Let's go to the next slide. But Rocky View is planning to build a new building. This is how the staff have to work now. It's quite terrible, and you know. But I would say the new county building has been a long time in the works. I started with Rocky View in 2001. He said, you know, we're getting a new building. I'm like, cool. And I've been with the county for 15 years. But the time is right. The things are coming along, and you know, we're seeing an evolution with our prospects that way. And yeah, I'll leave it at that because I don't want to talk about whether or not the province has the capacity to, you know, keep up with their commitments. But we'll see. When oil gets to $100, everybody will be dancing in the streets. Next slide. I talked a little bit about Cross Iron Mills. There's a new mall being planned for, this is serious. They won't have furniture this big, but there's a mall actually called New Horizon Mall, which is going to be built just south of Bass Pro. And it will be a very, very impressive, almost as impressive as this couch, but it'll be seriously impressive new piece of real estate. So it'll be very cool. Next slide. Now talking with Peter, Peter and Langdon Waterworks are a critical part of the infrastructure, and he said, you know, running utilities is really easy, so I thought I'd throw this slide in. Mike will get a kick out of this picture as well. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that I'm pursuing for Langdon. We've had really good traction in attracting the investment interest of agri-food processors. And so I won't say what or where or how or when, but I think we've got great potential to attract agri-food processing, and Langdon is a perfect location for that because you've got a base population. We're working with the Chamber of Commerce and the business community to do some labor force studies, and then we're going to go out and we're going to hit the pavement and really work to get that kind of investment. But like I said, it's the developers, the landowners, and the brokers that help me make that happen, right? So, next slide. The important thing to remember from this is I am here to take a hit for the team. So I am an office of one. Each and every one of you is an important part of my team, just like every member of council and every business person is an ambassador for the county. We'll go to the next slide. And yeah, Rocky View is in a great position. I think we've got an exceptional team of planners and engineers and technical people. We've got great support from council, and thanks to Rolly for all your work, because it's a tireless effort, seriously. And to each and every one of you, any questions you have for me? Welcome any questions or comments. I feel like I want to sing, actually. Good. All right, well, on that note, I'll say thank you for having me. It's an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thanks, Dave. As usual, you're entertaining and a lot of information. Appreciate that. Thank you.
I forgot something. Sorry, I wrote a book a few years back, and I thought, hey, I'm going to bring a copy and give this to one lucky person here in the audience. I would say the person who has a birthday closest to today I would like to present you with a copy of my book.
Sunday.
June 26th.
Mine's Monday.
Monday? Okay, Rolly has a copy of this already. He was one of my first purchasers of the book.
June 5th.
June 5th? Anything closer? 95th is it? There you go. Oh, I'll be back. One for you, I got one in my car.
Just so you know, I did read the book and it's very good. Thank you. Again, I appreciate that. Thanks for all your comments. Our next guest, what I would like to get is Bruce McAllister. I'm not sure if anybody remembers him. He used to be our best MLA we used to have. Could you please? And now he's part of Rocky View 2020. If you ever want to know quite a lot about Rocky View, just go on their website. There's a lot of good information. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks.
Evening all. I'm just happy to be up in your community and not having tomatoes thrown at me. It's refreshing. And great event tonight. And Al, thank you for having me out. I really appreciate it. And Rolly and Peter for the invite. Folks, I'll address the elephant in the room real briefly. Obviously, a year or so ago, you know, as your elected provincial representative, I made a decision that sure as hell didn't turn out. But know that with the best of intentions, it was made. And I hope that at some point those two groups stop fighting and we move forward as one in Alberta. And that's all I'll say on that. And if any of you ever want to talk to me about that, I'm wide open to discussing it. The reason I'm here tonight, I wasn't sure what I was going to do after that election. I thought about it for a while, and most of you know I'm a pretty conservative thinker. I'm a son of a cow-calf operator. I'm pro-business, and anyway, I was familiar with this group, Rocky View 2020. It's not affiliated with Dave Kalinchuk and Rolly and the wonderful people at Rocky View County. It is a landowner-based pro-business organization that was created a few years ago. It's a society here in Rocky View County. There's 400 to 500 members now. It's growing. Effectively, people that want to see business move forward. And you think about it, no matter what business discussion takes place, there's always a group of NIMBYists, it seems, that would stop business from moving forward. And sometimes some of that is warranted, but most times it's just, we don't want anything ever. And I refer to that group of people as cavemen, and the acronym being Citizens Against Virtually Everything. And that's not great for your town, obviously, if you want to grow, and certainly for the county. And as Dave pointed out tonight, some wonderful boons that you have gone through here with the Mega Mall, with CN. This brings a lot of money to the community of Rocky View. So that's why your taxes are so low in comparison to the community I live in Chestermere, by the way, which doesn't have light industrial commercial. In any event, Rocky View 2020 was started to try and move some of this business along, to try to work with the county when you can, to try and get past administration's red tape when it's excessive. And we want to see these things move forward when possible. So I signed on as their executive director, and am working with business communities. I want to see them thrive. I've been to the Bragg Creek Chamber of Commerce lately, the Balzac Business Community Association, and now visiting you folks. And we have a monthly meeting, the fourth Wednesday of every month at 1:30 in the afternoon in Balzac at the Community Hall. And our members come, whoever likes, and we usually have a relative guest that would provide information of interest. Last week we had the Rocky View County Fire Chief talking about Bragg Creek. Of course, after Fort McMurray was a big discussion for many. We had the head of Alberta beef producers out talking about that certified organic beef, which was thrust into the spotlight by Earl's decision, you'll recall. Anyway, so we talk about these things, and I have a hope that some of you folks from the Langdon Chamber will join us at some point in the fall with the folks from the Chamber in Bragg Creek and perhaps the Balzac Business Community Association. And I will ask you 3 questions. What's working? What isn't? And how do we improve it and move forward? And then it's my job, you know, with 2020 to try and do that. So in any event, you'll see a little more of me, I think, around your businesses, and just pulling on the same rope, I hope, and trying to see our communities grow and enhance what we have, protect what we have and enhance it as we grow. And you got some great leaders in this town that, like I said, I look at the comparative tax rates that are paid in the Calgary region, and something is going right in Rocky View County. And I know Dave mentioned the debt earlier. The only thing I'd say on the debt is that debt put some of that infrastructure in the ground that was needed to build Balzac, et cetera, when Calgary wouldn't play with water and everything else. So there was some forward thinking there. But any questions on Rocky View 20, you can go to our website at rockyview2020.com. Become a member. It's cheap, painless, free, and you'll get an email from me every couple of weeks and let you know what's going on around here, what I'm working on. And you're welcome anytime to come to our meeting and see what we're about, or contact me. And that's about all I have tonight, but good to be back here in the good luck town. Thank you. Any questions? Well, like I said, this is a lot calmer crowd than the last time I got in front of you all. Thank you very much.
Well, at the end, I'd just like to thank again to our entertainment, our musicians, our singers. They were fantastic. Our speakers, all of them, thank you. The only thing I would like to thank at the very end here is staff for organizing this and getting us all this prepared. She made their own wine and everything here, I understand. So, again, thank you very much. So please,